Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. I've already got some folks showing up here on unauthorized. That's cool. And I'm pretty happy today, as you could probably tell if you look at the shelf. Not the one behind me, but the one right next to that. If you look over a few spots from the red Plutarchs, you can see a pair of very large books with a very distinctive logo on the top of it. And that, of course, is the Castalia History logo. I'm actually wearing some of the first Castalia History shirts, but unfortunately the logo is a little bit far down. I think before they put them up for sale, they need to lift them up a little bit more, maybe 2 inches, but they look really good. It's a great logo, and it's really fantastic to see it on the spines, on the shelves. Honestly, I think they're some of the best books that we've done yet, and that seems to be the verdict of a lot of the history subscribers. And I have to admit, I was talking to the production editor tonight, and one of the first things that I said was, I mean, they're so great. I just wish they were in goat skin. But we resist the temptation. We stay strong. We stay focused. But you know, there's a lot of books coming out soon, because Thucydides is on the way. They're literally binding it today. Coming up within less than a month is Pride and Prejudice. Anthony sends the last super chat. Rated the wife's coin purse for that last credit. Well done. And thank you for the super chat. Anyhow, but I mean, there's a lot going on with Castalia Library and the bindery right now. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Everything's up, a lot of things up in the air. It's all good. It's all stuff that is frankly better than I could have imagined on the production side. And so I think all of you who are involved in the project are going to be super stoked in the next 6 months when some of the stuff that we're doing today begins to come to fruition. The world is just getting increasingly crazy. I was not happy to see that the Swiss Senate, or the upper house of parliament, voted to steal the frozen Russian assets. You know, a year ago, when the lower house wanted to do it, they said, well, we can't, it's unconstitutional. So apparently the Constitution was magically changed without anyone in Switzerland realizing it. You know, the Europeans, the government Europeans, not the people. There are no people outside of the Scandinavian countries, the Baltics, and Poland that support what their governments are doing. You know, the French are not happy about it. The Germans are very unhappy about it. The Swiss are even more unhappy about it, even though they haven't gotten in as deep. The Italians are totally against it. You know, the U.S. has made it very clear that it's giving up. You know, NATO, as in Clown World's military arm, has already lost the war to Russia. It's over. You know, they're talking about, oh, well, you know, we'll send a little bit more money here and there, whatever. But the stuff that I and Simplicius and Big Surge and Andrei Martyanov and other intelligent observers have been saying pretty much since the special military operation began, is now become abundantly clear to the clown world strategists. The whole time this has been going on, China has been quietly improving its position and quietly improving its forces. And, belatedly, somebody in Washington realized this and realized that the neo-clowns were just completely off base. All they managed to do is expose the U.S. military as a paper tiger. I mean, there have already been hundreds of U.S. military troops killed in Ukraine. Just what, yesterday, 2 days ago, the Russians wiped out 1 and possibly 2 Patriots installations. And the chances that those Patriot teams were Ukrainian are pretty much zero. The French were talking a big game, and they had an entire headquarters wiped out. Russia has been defeating NATO while keeping most of its forces reserved. The forces that they're using are predominantly the Donbass militia, the prison battalions, and the Chechens and other minorities. They're not the bulk of the Russian regular army. Simplicius estimates that they're using about 10 to 15% of the regular army. That's it. And they haven't needed any more. I mean, has Ukraine resisted much more strongly than I and others had assumed at the beginning? Yes. Because they've fielded 3 armies. 2 have already been completely destroyed. And the Russians just keep patiently grinding it down, which is exactly what they did in World War II with Hitler. It's exactly what they did in the Napoleonic Wars with Napoleon. And how does this always end up? It ends up with the Russian army marching into 1 or more European capitals. And that's what's going to happen if the European leaders don't come to their senses. The U.S. military and clown world have had to pivot because, number one, the situation in Israel. The interesting thing is that the war between the Houthis and the U.S. Navy is the biggest U.S. naval war since World War II. It's been going on for something like 45 days now, and they're still sinking ships. They just sank a British ship today. They damaged it for the first time 2 weeks ago, but it actually sank today. This is having a massive impact, and it's only going to get more serious because, again, just like the Russians with Russians in Ukraine, Iran is not using any of its regular forces. It's not using its best missiles. It's not using its Revolutionary Guards. It doesn't have to. Hezbollah hasn't even gotten involved. The Israelis are still slaughtering people in Gaza, still trying to defeat Hamas, and it's been well over a month now. And so what we're witnessing is the first major transformation of the global balance of power since 1989. It's the first major one since 1999, and it's probably the most significant one since 1945. It's that significant. It's that big, and the chaos that we're seeing now in places like Haiti, where they're literally cursed by generational demons, and which is why they're running around eating people. I mean, even the prime minister fled the country. Imagine how bad it has to be when it's not even a foreign invasion, it's not even a revolution, it's just complete out of control chaos. So bad that the head of state has to flee the country. Imagine what it would have to be like on the East Coast if that were to happen. And there's a chance it might. That's the incredible thing, But in the chaos, there's hope. In the chaos, there's hope that what comes next will be less completely devoted to wickedness than the current clown world regime. There's no guarantees, but we do have hope because we've seen leaders like Putin, leaders like Xi, putting their nations first, refusing to submit to the evil of clown world. Does that make them, Boy Scouts? Of course not. Does that make them someone that you would want to sit down to have dinner with? Well, for me, yes. I can't think of two people that would be more fascinating to talk to, except for maybe Wang Hunin. But they're probably not really the sort to engage in a casual conversation about sports and fashion over tea, right? They didn't create the hard times. They're the response to the hard times faced by their countries. They're the response to the wickedness. And I've said that for a long time. It's not the ultras, it's not the hardcore nationalists that are going to take over the countries in the West and, probably engage in some of the, most serious ethnic cleansing to be seen since, Gaza. No, I'm actually thinking more like the Indian partition, the partition of India back in after World War II. They're not the ones who will be to blame. The people who are to blame are the people who made this situation possible. They're the people who created the Windrush generation in the UK. They're Angela Merkel welcoming the refugees in 2015 or 2016, whenever it was. Those are the people who made the war and the bloodshed and all the awful things inevitable. They were wrong. Whether they were mistaken or wicked, I think probably depends from one person to the next. But you don't blame the plumber when he's fixing a sewage problem. And you don't blame a doctor because somebody's bleeding on their table. They're there to fix it, to stop it. And we have known, we published There Will Be War years ago. Martin Van Crevel, the great Israeli military historian, told us that immigration was war, migration was war years ago. So there's no excuse for those who continue to support it, continue to condone it, and continue to make matters worse, who continue to oppose every effort to restore some modicum of civilization to the West. And that's part of why they're so desperately trying to shut everybody up and shut things down and silence everything, is because they can't handle the truth at all. The truth burns them. The truth exposes them. The truth shows that their lies are false. But, reality always forces itself on even the craziest individuals sooner or later. Even the most wicked individuals are eventually going to be held to account in some way. This world or the next. Sometimes both. And so it falls to us to keep speaking the truth. I talked to an older gentleman today, and I was kind of surprised to hear that he'd read the blog from time to time. And he said, I know that the media says these terrible things about you, and I know that you're supposed to be this very, terrible person. He said, but all I know is that when you address the things that I know about, you're right, you're correct. That's the most we can hope for. Are we going to convince everyone? Of course not. We might not even convince most people. Most people are deluded. Most people are trapped in obfuscation, in their incorrect mental models. I don't know if any of you pay any attention to, I don't know if any of you pay attention to Sigma Game. But, if you pay attention to Sigma Game, you'll know that today I was addressing a individual who was talking about a problem that he had with communicating with his superiors. And I'm not going to bore you with the details of that, but the relevant part of it to what we're talking about tonight is the way in which repeated and reliable failure never once made him try a different approach. And so I think that that's important to keep in mind when we see what Clown World is going to do, because they're not going to learn just because it failed. The fact that it failed doesn't mean that they're going to change their minds about the way that they believe the world works. For decades, people talked about how, communism is correct. It just hasn't been properly tried yet. Well, we all know that's just a coping mechanism. And it's a very normal coping mechanism. Chewy Bear sends a super chat. He says, here's the last of my credits to pay the retardery away. Well, we're optimistic that, within 2 weeks or so, we'll be able to start pumping everybody up to resubscribe and get the subscriptions up to 10,000 again. So that's the goal. But thank you, Cheery Bear. Very kind, very gracious. The retardery is gone. Anyhow, I think that we're going to see more and more normal people, more and more people that, tend to believe whatever the mainstream says. The kind of people that, good people that went and got COVID vaccinations because their doctor said they should, and they said it was safe and effective. The kind of people that, said that, we need to stand for Ukraine because Russia is bad and it wants to invade the world. They're starting to notice that the mainstream can't be trusted. People have been pointing out the absurdity of the South Dakota law, fighting anti-Semitism. So you're not allowed to criticize the 140 people who fit that description who live in South Dakota. It's nonsense. Total nonsense. People notice that. Why is this law being passed? People notice the total inconsistency between the way that the mainstream media attacks Russia for attacking Ukraine and defends Israel for attacking Gaza. You know? We have reporting, we have slight inconsistency here. Some people are saying the stream's going in and out. Others are saying the stream is constant and great audio. Well, right now, what's happening is Unauthorized is running completely off of the European servers. So we have servers in the States, we have servers in Europe, and they mirror. And once we get the system back up, once we have the subscriptions back up, then the devs will have the time to divide the traffic properly so that if you're in the US, you go to the US server, and if you're in Europe, you go to the European server. So that should improve the quality for everybody. You know, the fact that you're actually getting pretty good performance in general from the other side of the ocean is actually a very encouraging thing. So, so we'll get there. It really will depend upon the quality of your connection in the US. That's referring to right now, I believe. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you know, once we have the server in the US back up and running, then it should be good. Jersey Bear says Normie family is starting to see it with mainstream media. Siblings primarily get news from Substack. Yeah, Substack is amazing just because I don't know how they did it, but they did manage to essentially get constant spamming approved by the big mail services. You know, if you subscribe to a Substack, you get it in your email every day. And it works great. It's fantastic. In fact, I want to thank all of the Castalia Library Substack subscribers. It just hit 1,000 subscribers, which is great. You know, people are really enjoying the both the daily selection from Castalia history. They're also enjoying the junior classics. I was talking to the editor today, and they were just super delighted that even though it doesn't accept paid subscriptions, that some people were you know, were offering to take out paid subscriptions. I think that was a pleasant surprise for them. But you know, it's just they're just all new ways to reach out, all new ways to communicate and get things around to people. Venomous says it's nice to be able to read an article without heading to an external link. Yeah, some people like that, some people don't. You know, I generally, like, for example, I've always gotten the Arkhaven blog post from Dark Herald in the mail. I usually click on the link and read it there. I don't know why I prefer it. Substack, pretty much the same way. Q1882 sends a super chat and says, I do miss feeding off the enemy's free bandwidth, though. Fair enough, but you know, the thing is that the great news is that it's not necessary for us. You know, we have gotten to the point that we have sufficient platforms and we can just use whatever is the most effective. You know, the Substack approach is really great. It works really well. You know, I tried using Library Thing to keep people informed. For whatever reason, probably because there's no email connection, it just didn't work as well. I mean, we still use it, it's important to be there because that's where the other book collectors congregate. Folio Society, Franklin Library, Easton Press. But the library Substack, I mean, we're going to have more Substack subscribers than we have combined Castalia Library and Castalia History subscribers soon, which is a good news, and plus there's also building up a fairly formidable amount of quality content there. People like reading. They like reading the excerpts. I'd say about 500 people read the excerpts on average, and about 120 read the Junior Classics excerpts. But when we post something about a new book, a new announcement, show it how a test stamping looks, we see like 1,000 to 2,000 people coming and checking it out, and a lot of them are not people from the community. They're just people that like the quality books, and that's an important thing. That's a really useful thing. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the different companies handle it. Like, we talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to show you the graphic just because it's really kind of startling. I'm interested in potentially having Castalia partner with Folio Society because their specialty is interiors and our specialty is exteriors, and so it's kind of a natural partnership. And I had originally thought that that'd be something that would be of more use to us, but the reality is that they might actually need some kind of partnership with us. Check this out. So what I did was I went and looked up all of the Folio Society sales. So the number on the left is sales in inflation corrected millions of pounds. So back in 2000, they had sales of about 35 million pounds. So the numbers were, the pound was worth more then. So, I mean, that was pretty close to like $70 million. They were very big. And what they used to do is they used to sell, you had to be a member. It wasn't a subscription per se, but you had to buy 4 books a year if you're going to buy books from them. And starting in 2010, things started to decline. I haven't figured out why, but I'm guessing it has to do with the books they offered people. They finally ended the memberships, and they brought in a new CEO. COVID helped them a bit because people couldn't go out, and so people were ordering books online. We saw the growth. Everybody saw that growth. But then look what has happened already. They're already down to, it's at actually 13.6 million. I wouldn't be shocked if it drops below 10 this year, based on what I'm seeing. And that's just straight convergence. That's just straight old white. It's not just for old white males anymore, which actually means it's not for old white males anymore, or anyone who values the historical canon. And so, maybe they won't be interested in any sort of partnership. Maybe they'll just, continue to spiral downward until they disappear. But it's an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity for us to keep doing what we're doing, what you guys want us to do, and what people value. And the constant theme of all of this is just pursuing what is real, pursuing what is true. There's just no need, no time to waste on past mistakes, past recriminations. There's no need to be constantly asking for explanations and justifications. Focus on the mission. If you do one thing in these increasingly complicated and difficult times, figure out what the mission is, whether it's for the day, for the week, whatever, and focus on it. Figure out a way to get it done. My biggest mistakes have always been compounded by not just diving in and addressing it at the earliest possible opportunity. It's normal. Maybe you're a little bit lazy. Maybe you just you want to delay the moment of judgment, like an NFL coach, kicking a field goal to stay in the game, even though you're pretty much sealing your fate by doing so. Most people do what NFL coaches always used to do. They do it less and less now, but they always used to put off the deciding moment, regardless of whether the moment that they were making that decision was a pretty good chance. If it wasn't a sure thing, they would do something to push the decision back. Don't do that. I've done it myself on many occasions. It's a mistake. But we like to be comfortable. We like things as they are. We fear change. But how you feel isn't going to improve your situation. It's not going to improve your odds. The only thing that's going to improve your odds is what you do. The actions that you take, the decisions that you make. So that's what I'd encourage you to do, especially as things get more challenging, things get more interesting, opportunities present themselves. Those of you who can bring yourself to be decisive and bring yourself to act, you're the ones who are going to be the most successful in these times. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.